What's up, friend? Welcome to Seed and Sparrow Homestead. My name's Kelsey, if you are new. I just got back from running a whole bunch of errands with my kiddos. We were gone most of the morning. It's already afternoon. The day just gets away from me sometimes. I had to go to the grocery store. We went to a local Amish store, and then our local auction, Amish Run auction, is every Friday around here. So we went there to pick up some produce because I needed some extra things for some of the projects I'm going to be working on with you. I picked up a bushel's worth of peaches, some mangoes, some cilantro, a whole bunch of limes, and then just recently we started getting overrun with tomatoes and peppers. So it is time to can some salsa. I'm gonna do some non-traditional salsas as well. Some mango salsa, some peach salsa. And then I know I'm gonna be canning peach slices if I have an goodness, what's the word? I don't know what word I was trying to use, but if I have extra tomatoes, I am going to probably make either just a batch of tomato sauce or pizza sauce. What else? And we're probably gonna run the freeze dryer too. But before I can start on any of that stuff, I need to go outside because I know there's probably a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be harvested. It's been a few days. So this is the time of year, quite honestly, where I question the amount of food I'm growing. It does become a little overwhelming all at once, but it's really just for a few weeks when, you know, just have all of those tomatoes and peppers coming in that you just constantly have to be preserving in some way. And I'm totally out of freezer space, and we're going to be harvesting our meat birds in like 3-4 weeks. No, 5 weeks. But within 5 weeks, I need to work through some of the stuff I have in my freezer so I have room for the chickens. So none of this stuff can really get frozen. So it's either canning or freeze drying. So let's get started. So all of this stuff, except for the few things I purchased today, has just been accumulating in my fridge probably since Monday. Today's Friday. And the raspberries have started picking up production again. We're probably gonna freeze dry those. I got all these peppers here. All of these tomatoes back in there. I know I'm gonna have more. I'm gonna harvest now. More green beans. And then I purchased the cilantro. I always have to purchase it. It always bolts and goes to seed before I can actually use it. Limes I purchased, the red onions I purchased, and the peaches I purchased. So we've got some work to do. Now let's go see how much else I can pick. You know, I never want to sound ungrateful. I hope I don't come across that way. I'm very grateful for everything. Sometimes I just overestimate my ability to get it all done. You know, when you're coming through the winter and like all you want is to see green things growing, I tend to go overboard. So I've just decided this year I'm gonna can what I know we need and what we will eat through, and then any of the surplus is just gonna go to our local churches, like food bank, or, you know, friends and family that can use it. But I don't ever want to come across as ungrateful. It just does get kind of overwhelming. I don't know how much of the harvesting I'm actually gonna film. I don't want this video to be like 2 hours long. So I might just take you with me for a little bit of it. Plus it's really quite toasty out here, and I don't want to be out here super long. I've just got way too much stuff to do inside. Here's some paste tomatoes. My one chicken keeps getting out here and eating all of my paste tomatoes. You can see there's some like half-eaten and rotted on the vine. So even if they're not completely fully ripe, I'm still gonna grab them. They can just ripen inside. Paste tomatoes, check. Okay, paste tomatoes not check because I forgot I have some up here in the front garden. There's quite a few on this plant. And I gotta figure out a better support system. I typically don't use, sorry for the road noise, I typically don't use these like wire supports. They don't really do a great job. As you can see, they're all falling over, but I'm gonna grab all the paste tomatoes in here and grab some of our slicers. I think these are Dr. Witchy's. I'm gonna butcher the variety of this one, but I think it's called like Wapaniskin. I don't know, something peach, but they're fuzzy, which is so fun, and they just turn this kind of like pale yellow color. I don't think oh, that one feels ready. It's so funny how they're fuzzy. Okay, it's not ready, but do you see the size of this tomato? It is massive. Pretty sure that's a pineapple. Either pineapple or Old German, one of the two. They always gave me the biggest tomatoes. I'm interested to see how much that will weigh. I don't really see many more down here. There's one or two here. I haven't shown you guys the scabiosa yet, but aren't they cool? They start off these little kind of like buttons, and they open up into that. The hollyhocks started to bloom. So this one, I believe, is double lilac from Baker Creek. And this is double champagne from Baker Creek. Somebody's going to town in there. I don't think I have any other peppers to go after. There are a ton, oops, there are a ton of these Ajvarski, but I like to let them all go to red, so it'll be a while before we harvest them. Looks like there's a couple jalapenos though. Two other things I need to harvest are these raspberries. I don't know if you can just see how many there are going to be. Like, just look at this insanity. Definitely a bumper crop for the raspberries this year. Okay, I got the raspberries. Last two things. There's so much out here I could honestly harvest, but I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. Gotta harvest these beans, and then over there through the jungle there's more beans. And then I did notice my cabbages are starting to get bug ridden, and something's happening here. So I'm going to harvest these, but I'm not doing anything with them, at least not in this video. They're gonna stay in the fridge. Also, if you are a gardener, raise your hand if your garden has reached jungle status. There's a lot of walkways which are no more, and there are absolutely no walkways up in there. I can't even walk without stepping on some plant. Alright, I got everything in from outside. It's so hot. So I apologize now if you hear some humming in the background. I have the air conditioner on. It's super loud, but there's no way I am working over a hot stove for the remainder of the day without air conditioning. I found some oopsies. Whoops. 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 This one's okay. So, at some point, I'm probably gonna make some chocolate zucchini bread with those, but they're okay going into the fridge for now. Cabbage is gonna go into the fridge. I have two other heads over there. I think with the raspberries that I harvested, I am just gonna get them onto the freeze dryer trays, and I do have room in the freezer to at least put those in until I have a full freeze dryer load. I plan on freeze drying all of these beans here, but I don't feel like snapping them right now. That's something I'd rather do, like when my husband and I will sometimes just sit and watch a show at night and do stuff like that. I don't know if that makes me sound really old, but it's a fun little pastime. You know, busy work with your hands. So anyways, I'm gonna put those into the fridge for now, work on them later. The things I really want to work on and get preserved are the tomatoes and peppers, and the peaches. So I think I'm going to I cleared off my table. I am going to divide out the tomatoes and the peppers for each of the recipes I want to do, and then whatever surplus I have in the tomatoes, I am just going to core them, and then I'm going to put them into a pot on the stove to start to soften up before I run them through a food mill, and then that'll just be sauce. So I feel like I have somewhat of a game plan. So yeah, let's get started. All right, we've got our things separated for each recipe. So back here, I'm doing a cherry tomato and corn salsa. So I've got that all measured out. I've got the stuff measured out for my peach salsa. And then this is a mango salsa. And this one is just tomato and jalapeno. I am making one batch for each of these 3. This one I doubled because I had extra cherry tomatoes I wanted to use up. So that means, let me close my door. I've got all of these here to use towards sauce. So this would take probably 3 of these pots full to cook down. So I think I'm gonna go grab my electric roaster and core these up, probably cut them in half, and then allow them to cook down in there. And then we will worry about straining them through the mill a little bit later. However, I have a ton of peppers. I have plenty of cowboy candy. I have lots of pickled banana pepper rings. I don't have many frozen or freeze-dried bell peppers, so those I know what I'm gonna do with. I have no clue what I'm gonna do with the rest of these peppers. I lied, I forgot. I wanna make some jalapeno poppers. However, I need to consider freezer space. So I'm gonna check that, but if I have room, maybe we'll make some jalapeno poppers at some point. So now we chop. Alright, one recipe is ready to go on the stovetop. So this peach salsa mixture is gonna get brought to a boil, and then we wanna make sure all the sugar has dissolved. We're gonna lower the heat, and then we're going to allow it to simmer for 5 minutes. Okay friends, I'm gonna go over the necessary steps when canning just one time. We're gonna be doing a lot of canning in this video, so I don't want to be too repetitive, but I want to make sure I cover the proper bases for any new canners out there. So we are using 1/2 pint jars here. I am filling them, leaving a 1/2 inch of headspace. I'm going to go in with a wooden skewer to debubble, get all the air bubbles out, and then I will adjust the headspace as needed, making sure it's at a 1/2 inch. I'm going to wipe down the rims, make sure there's no food residue. I'm using new washed lids. I'm using 4 jars lids. I do have an affiliate code down in the description. You can get 10% off your order. I love them. And I am adding on the rings, making sure the lids are centered, tightening them to fingertip tight. I do want to mention, anytime you hear me say a processing time, that is for
under 1,000 feet of elevation, which is where I am at. Depending on your elevation, you may need to refer to the chart in the canning books to see what the correct processing time is for your elevation.
Okay, so we got our first batch of salsa going in. The peach salsa gave me 7 half-pint jars. And I believe I gotta check the processing time, one moment. They process for 10 minutes at a full rolling boil. So as soon as you have a full rolling boil, you start your timer for 10 minutes. And then after the 10 minutes is up, I come back, turn my burner off, remove the lid, and I wait about 10 minutes before I remove them from the canner to sit until usually the next morning. Okay, I just wanted to mention, like usual, you can find all of the recipes I'm doing down in the description. I'll either put the links to the canning sites, or if I can't find them online, then I will list the ingredients for you. But all of the salsa recipes I am getting today are all from the all-new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving. This one no longer has its cover, thanks to Grant. But there's like this little table here that has 5 different recipes, all made the same way. You combine everything into a pot, you bring it to a boil, then you let it simmer, fill your jars. Really simple process. Now, the peach one is on its own page. That's page 173. And it's actually the fiery peach salsa. It called for a habanero, but a pepper is a pepper is a pepper when you're canning. So depending on the spice level you want, you can swap out one pepper for another. You can do that safely. So instead of putting in the habanero pepper, I just put in 3 mild jalapenos. So yeah, I will link this book down in the description as always. This book and the other ball canning book are really what I pull all of my canning recipes from. All right, we're moving on to our next salsa. I'm gonna do the cherry, tomato, and corn salsa. So for this, I need 3 tablespoons of cilantro, which I already had chopped up here, so I'm just adding that in first. Now, each of these recipes I'm doing does call for cilantro. I know people really either love cilantro or really, really, really hate it. So if you're one of those passionate cilantro haters, you can omit this. It is not a safety ingredient, it's a flavor ingredient. So feel free to omit it if you desire. I'm gonna throw in my book's down here. 1 teaspoon of salt. And then I have to quarter all of my cherry tomatoes. So I'm gonna get these all quartered. I have some corn here that I need to take all the kernels off. I need some diced red onion, a 1/4 cup of lime juice. I still need 1 to 2 jalapeno peppers, seeded and minced. And that's it. So all that's gonna go in here, and then that's gonna go over to the stovetop. We'll keep working on the other ones. I did want to mention as well that you can freeze these if you want. Just prepare them the way that I'm preparing them, and then let them cool off, stick them in containers, and put them into the freezer to enjoy later. The only thing is you have to keep in mind, especially if you're doing a chunkier salsa, it's not going to keep its structure super well. You'll still have some chunkiness to it, but it does lose its structure and becomes a bit more mushy through being frozen and then thawed. So keep that in mind. cherry tomato and corn salsa is ready to boil now. So I'm bringing the heat up. Once it gets to a boil, I'll then reduce the heat and allow it to simmer for 5 minutes. So it's the same for all of the recipes in terms of the process. They all have 1/2 inch of headspace. The only difference is the peach salsa had a 10-minute processing time. These next 3 recipes all have a 15-minute processing time. That's the only difference there.
I love canning salsas. The colors are just so beautiful and vibrant, and there is nothing like popping open a can of salsa and tasting summer in the dead of winter.
All right, before we move on to another salsa, I wanted to check on the tomatoes here. Make sure nothing is sticking to the bottom. So what I'm gonna do with this now, I'm just gonna allow this to continue cooking down, allowing some of that water to cook out, and I will probably run this through the food mill tomorrow. It is pushing 7 o'clock now, and I know if I tried to keep working with this, I'd be up till midnight, and I'm not doing that to myself today. So we are going to allow this to cook down until I go to bed. I will shut this off, and then we'll run it through the food mill tomorrow.
Our mango salsa is ready to go to the stovetop and then into the jars to be canned. In the next clip, you will hear a bit of what it normally sounds like for me in the background and why I do so many voiceovers.
Alright, so we are finally on our last salsa recipe. I've got all of my tomatoes chopped up here. I have some white onion chopped up, some chopped cilantro. Grant is here making noise with a chair. I have some seeded and diced jalapenos and some minced garlic. So all of this is going to go in here. Grant, Sam, can you please put that down? Gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt and then a 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. 1/2 cup of fresh lime juice. I'm gonna stir all this together. It goes on the stove, same deal, and then everything goes into the canner. And I'm calling it a night. It's a little bit after 8 o'clock till I get everything cleaned up, get the kids their bath. It's gonna be too late for me to do anything else. So I'm wrapping it up with at least all the salsa done, which is a good thing. So tomorrow we'll get back at it, canning peaches, the tomato sauce, loading up the freeze dryer, and maybe a few other things. We'll see.
I'm sure you can hear in the background I have the dishwasher running, so I got everything cleaned up and put away. I have a clean slate to work with tomorrow morning. If there's any advice I could give you during preservation season, it's to always put your kitchen to bed. It's no fun waking up in the morning to a dirty kitchen that you have to tidy up and get back in order before you can actually start doing things. And it's so wonderful to wake up and have a clean slate so you can just get started with your day. I ended up with 25 beautiful half pints of salsa. Bright and early the next morning, Grant and I got right to work. He was helping me mill all of the tomatoes to remove the seeds and the peels. This is, I believe the brand is Cucino. Got it off of Amazon. It works pretty well. I've had it for a few years and I don't really have any complaints. I do like to run the seeds and the peels coming out of it through 1 or 2 more times just to make sure you get all of that nice tomato meat off of there. So we just did this with all of the tomatoes. Everything went right back into the electric roaster, and I'm going to allow this to cook down because you can see just how watery it is here. I like a little bit thicker of a sauce. While the tomato sauce is cooking down, we're going to get working on canning our peaches. The first thing we have to do is peel them. So I have some boiled water here. We're going to dunk our peaches in there for about 30 seconds. And then we're going to remove them from the hot water and put them right into some cold water. Now you can score the bottom of the peaches with an X. You can see there they've already started to split. I don't really find that scoring them is necessary, but if you're having some issues, maybe give that a shot and it'll help you out. You can see here just how easily the skin just slides right off, making peeling a very easy job. From there, I am going to split these in half and take the pit out. These are supposed to be freestone peaches, meaning the pit, the stone, comes away from them easily. Only a few of them really came away easily for me. I had to work to get them out, and some of them didn't end up so nice. Isn't a huge deal, but if you are canning peaches, do yourself a favor and try and find ones that are freestone rather than ones that are cling. The pits do cling to the flesh. So I'm following the National Center for Home Food Preservation's directions for canning peaches. You can do peach halves or peach slices. I am choosing to do slices. So I am slicing these all up. I am putting them into some water that has some lemon juice in it. There's also, I think it's called Fresh Fruit or Fruit Fresh, I think, by, it's either Mrs. Wages or Ball. And it'll just keep the fruit from turning brown until you're ready to work with it. You can use water, juice, or a simple syrup to can your peaches in. I've done water before. I find it draws all of the flavor out of the peaches, leaving them pretty bland. I've done the simple syrup before. I think it makes them too sweet. So I am doing the apple juice. I have found this just really enhances their flavor. It doesn't take away from it, and it doesn't add any extra sugar. This is an organic, unsweetened apple juice. So I'm adding all of my peaches in here. I ended up, I think, with 14 quarts of sliced peaches, and I only needed that one 64-ounce container of apple juice, if that gives you an idea of how much juice you will need. So these all get added in here. This goes over to the stovetop where we are going to bring this up to a boil. As soon as it's done, we remove it from the stovetop and we get it into our jars. I am using quart jars. You can use pint jars. This works for our family. Grant can honestly eat one of these quart jars by himself in one sitting. He's a huge fan. So same deal here. We're going to fill up our jars. These get filled to a 1/2 inch of headspace We debubble, adjust headspace if needed, wipe the rims down, add a new washed lid, put our rings on to fingertip tight. And then, since I have hot packed these, we boiled them first. They process for 25 minutes. If you are raw packing, just throwing raw peaches in, throwing some hot liquid on top of them, you will need to process them longer. You can find that at the link down in the description below. I find that canning them with the hot pack method is far superior to raw packing. It helps eliminate some air. You can pack way more peaches in a jar than you could if you were raw packing, and I just like the end result better. So now we're going to work on our tomato sauce. We need to acidify. You can use either lemon juice or citric acid. I had citric acid on hand that needed to be used up, so that's what we're using today. It is 1/2 teaspoon per quart jar. To that, we are going to add some Italian herbs. This is optional. You can leave it out and add it later if you like. I'm adding 1 teaspoon per jar and then 1 teaspoon of salt per jar. That's also optional. You can leave it out if you'd like. You can see just how much thicker the sauce has gotten. I probably let it roast for another 4 or 5 hours to get it to this consistency. Our tomato sauce gets filled up to a 1/2 inch of headspace. Same process. These we are water bath canning, and they will process for 40 minutes. Days of work got me 7 quarts of tomato sauce, 14 quarts of peaches, 25 half pints of salsa, 2 gallons of freeze-dried peach slices, a 1/2 gallon of freeze-dried raspberries, 1 gallon of freeze-dried green beans, all going into the pantry for winter eating. That wraps up today's video. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Feel free to leave any questions down below. I do appreciate all the comments so much, and I try my hardest to respond to each one. Although sometimes I just honestly can't keep up. Just know I read them and I appreciate them so very much. Blessings on your week, friend. Until next time, take care.